The story of Mary Anning is set in the early 1800s in England. The social expectations that you have of England back then are probably correct. Massive wealth gaps that couldn't be more obvious, real education wouldn't come into effect until the end of the century unless you could afford private tutoring, and science was a kind of hobby for gentlemen to spend their time doing. Especially geology, rich folk love geology. The heroine of our story was born on the wrong side of that class divide. Her family was working class and large. Maybe that was a normal thing for the time, but by all accounts, Mary had 9 other brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, only Mary and her brother survived into adulthood. Her father died too, leaving her brother, sister, and mother to fend for themselves. Her only education would have been through Sunday school, where she did at least learn to read and write. The church she attended was not a typical one you'd find many other Englishmen going to. The official church at the time was an Orthodox Anglican church, which taught pretty strict interpretations of the Bible. It's possible that Mary never saw the Bible like that. It's maybe this different point of view which led to her interest in fossil hunting. Whereas others saw these odd-shaped rocks as creatures that perished just a few thousand years ago in the Great Flood, or even tricks left by God, Mary knew from her father's past interest that these fossils were much older than that. She also knew that scientific hobbyists of the time would pay quite a steep price for them. Fossil hunting along the coast of Lyme Regis became a family business, with her out every day alongside what we now call the Jurassic Coast, looking for fossils that had been uncovered by the tide. This wasn't a particularly safe job. The coast changes from hour to hour, with landslides happening where the ocean pulls away at the ground beneath the cliffs. That was the opportunity Mary and her dog Trey were out there looking for, though. They did this for years without any close calls, or at least not close enough to scare her away from coming back the very next day. The streak of luck wasn't surprising to anyone, though. As a quick side story, before Mary ever became famous for her fossil hunting skills, she became something of a local celebrity from the age of just 1 year old. The story goes that Mary was being held by a family friend, taking a stroll down the beachfront, when a lightning bolt struck the family friend and 2 other people that they were with. It instantly killed all 3 of them, but Mary survived, just a baby, just fine. What you're seeing here is the Fossil Marine Reptiles Gallery at the Natural History Museum. A great number of these were found by Mary Anning, and many were the first discoveries of the species, or at the very least the most pristine discoveries of that species. It's hard to know how many of them she found though, as the museum didn't keep records of who donated items until much later. Even when the museum did start collecting this kind of metadata, the piece was often attributed to the person donating the item rather than Mary, who likely sold it to them just a few years before. Mary's career seems to be as turbulent as her coastline. Often she supported her family by selling single large pieces to well-paying hobbyists. An ichthyosaur specimen, which was sold to the Lord of the Manor of Colway for £23, that's about £1,300 in today's money, was later sold to the British Museum for almost double that, around £45, which must have been a bit upsetting for Mary to hear. She would have almost certainly have approached them first. I wonder why they turned her down, but a wealthy gentleman was A-OK to buy from. Her items often went to private homes first, before ending up on public display somewhere else. The British Museum passed over on a 1.5 metre Ichthyosaurus specimen, which was later bought by a newly formed Bristol institution, before it was destroyed in Second World War. Despite being ignored so often, when the Bristol institution opened, a local reporter said this of Mary Anning: "This preserving female has for years gone daily in search of fossil remains of importance at every tide. To her exertions we owe nearly all of the fine specimens of Ichthyosauri of great collections." Between those sales were long periods of poverty, however. There was no welfare during these times, and the economic safety net often came from the church. Another helping hand came in the form of a friend, Henry de la Beche, who was a watercolourist who'd later go on to become the first director of the Geological Survey of Great Britain. He created, well, I'm not sure I can pronounce it, but he created this piece of art, and gave all the profits of it to Mary Anning. Later, when she got back on her feet, she managed to lose hundreds of pounds to a conman who shammed her into investing in his business. The worst was yet to come though, as Mary's luck ended abruptly when a landslide killed her dog Trey. I can't say that I have too much sympathy for her on this one though. Trey didn't really get the best end of the stick with his owner. His job was to follow her down the beach, and if Mary spotted a fossil that was too big for her to manage on her own, she'd have Trey sit on it while she went to town to find help. I imagine Trey dutifully sitting on the spot even as the world crumbled around him. Or maybe he just gave up waiting, moved further up the coast, and became a dog of leisure. Unfortunately, it appears as Mary's life came to a close, it left her disappointed by her stolen recognition. Many men from the correct background took a great deal of acclaim from her findings. In a letter to a friend before she died, she wrote, "The world has used me so unkindly. I fear it has made me suspicious of everyone." It's taken an awfully long time for us to get around to recognising her achievement, but the Natural History Museum has recently created a new lounge for its members dedicated to her. I've not been to the Anning Rooms yet, but I'm pretty eager to go and see how the museum is showing its recognition. So I don't usually do YouTube videos like this, I usually just make videos every few years to give people a tour of our new house. But I figured I'd make this one because I'm hoping to raise a little bit of money for the museum to fund their scientific efforts around the world. I'll be doing their first Race for Nature this week, and if you'd like to sponsor me, then the link will be below in the description. I really do recommend going along to the Natural History Museum. It's a beautiful and well-presented building, and that's just the outside. Inside is even better, with enough to keep you interested there for days on end. In the past few months, I've been maybe 4 times, and I'm still finding new rooms with interesting things inside them. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you have a lovely day.